I'll get more insights as I take more LSD, I guess. So we'll see how it goes. And one of the purposes of this book, honestly, all my other books I just shared from my heart. It was nothing about the money. It was all about just gifting ideas out to the universe. This is to gift ideas out to the scientific community so they will then be motivated to do more studies on things like just cross-training with LSD and ketamine and mushrooms further enhance the nootropic or the neural regeneration compared to just monotherapy with mushrooms, right? So there's a lot of cool new things that I think can be stimulated by writing a book. And they may bash me because I'm not some world famous neurosurgeon or neurologist, but I think I'll have a broader picture to display to them in terms of ideas. There's so many conditions that can benefit from psychedelics, and you can just Google this stuff, or you can chat GPT this stuff and verify it all. Depression, of course, we're treating that with psilocybin very effectively, and ketamine. Anxiety, PTSD, addiction disorders, particularly with ibogaine, we're treating addiction disorders, OCD, relationship strains. We could put marital counselors out of business just by prescribing MDMA, honestly. But I think marital counselors can be so much more powerful using MDMA. Age-related cognitive impairment, so many opportunities there to prevent Alzheimer's, to maybe even reverse Alzheimer's with some of these therapies. Traumatic brain injury, there's a disruption of neural tracks. We can reconnect those tracks through psychedelics. Multiple sclerosis, there's a blank ton of inflammation going on there, and we can reduce inflammation through mushrooms, actually, believe it or not. And then other natural things, turmeric, etc., grapeseed extract, you name it. Even Parkinson's can be reversed to a certain degree and treated with psychedelics. Of course, a lot of these are not coming up because Big Pharma does not want the competition. They would rather us pay for the more expensive things that are going to be less effective. And you could look at some of the Alzheimer's drugs, they're not much better than placebo these days. So here's the scary part of what's happening in our country right now. As of 2021, we have 21 million individuals in the United States that are suffering from depression, epidemic levels. Anxiety, huge numbers, millions as well, and the largest percentage, of course, is in our adolescent groups, which unfortunately many of them are committing suicide. What's the suicide rate right now? It's as high as the number of people we lost in Vietnam, 49,000 people a year, sadly, and that's about one person every 11 minutes. So during this talk, we're looking at maybe 10 people taking their lives. Alzheimer's, estimated at about 6.7 million Americans are suffering from that right now. Horrible, debilitating disease. It's just tragic for everybody involved. As we age, it obviously increases, and as we get over 85, it's 33%, so it's worrisome. Diabetes is going through the roof. We have an obesity epidemic, so type 2 diabetes is showing up in 12, 13-year-olds. And what does diabetes do? Well, unfortunately, it can double, triple your risk of developing Alzheimer's. So particularly if you get it when you're younger, right? And then you add COVID on there and some other things, and you've created a perfectly inflamed brain that's gonna implode, probably by the age of 40 or something. And then the other big thing that we were just talking about with world peace is our divided country, our divided world, the religions fighting against each other. What can we do to bring us all together? And my solution would be put LSD in the water for a day, worldwide, right? Let's go big. We don't need fluoride, we need LSD, okay. So classic psychedelics typically considered to be LSD, psilocybin, DMT, mescaline. Mescaline includes peyote and San Pedro or Wachuma, as we call it. They act on the serotonin receptors called the 5-HT2A receptors. What happens with that? Well, you get a nice trip, a lot of good visuals, a lot of sensory enhancement, cognitive changes, and your brain just comes alive. It's beautiful and amazing, right? What is some of the other magic is it also disrupts our default mode network, and Michael Pollan wrote in Change Your Mind a lot about the default mode network and the importance of disrupting that in terms of how it can kind of help you reset and let go of shit. We'll be talking about the default mode network in a few different slides here, so a little bit of repetition. And what it can do is help you dissolve your ego, and if you do a big mushroom trip or a big LSD trip, sometimes you don't even know if you're on the planet and you're traveling through the stars. I was just talking with a gal like that about earlier before the talk, which can be an amazing but sometimes scary experience. But in doing so, it really allows you to clear things from the past and rewire your brain in an amazing, powerful way. We can have increased connectivity between these different brain regions, potentially enhancing our creativity and introspection. So one of the other benefits of psychedelics is that not only does it make you smarter, it makes you more creative, it makes you more introspective, it makes you more empathetic, it makes you want to love everybody and be hyper-connected, right? That's why we're all here. Okay. And so more on the default mode network. This is where it's kind of lit up in the image of a functional MRI in the top right. And you can see that it becomes active during rest, such as daydreaming and self-reflection, recalling memories. When we have the psychedelics on board, we have that reset, and it's that reset that allows people to clear their PTSD, sometimes get rid of ruminating thoughts of, oh, I'm depressed and this and that, and they kind of go in that downward spiral. So we can break up that spiral by resetting in an aggressive or fairly aggressive way with psychedelics. The core brain areas include the prefrontal cortex, the cingulate cortex, angular gyrus, and hippocampus, which I'm not going to bore you with anatomy, but you can look that up online. And then again, oftentimes we'll see that people that have an overactive default mode network will have more depression because they're ruminating, or they'll be more anxious because they're just thinking about stuff all the time, and they're stuck. And so modern medicine technique is, well, let's just blunt you guys down. We're going to put you on Paxil, Prozac, Cymbalta, so you're kind of basically dumbed down. You don't give a flip, right? But really what we need to do is a functional medicine approach where we go to the root cause and we break up those ruminating thoughts, just like if I took a snow globe in my hand and said, I'm going to shake the crap out of this thing and make it all fall in a different location. That's what we're doing to the brain when we do psychedelics. So that's the beauty. We can really reboot your computer, shake up that snow globe, and get you thinking in a different, more positive way, particularly with the assistance of integration and therapy and positive mind thoughts, etc. So this is your brain on drugs, but really good drugs, right? So Nancy Reagan, showing our brain frying with the egg. I remember that when I was a kid. What she didn't realize is that there's a lot of good stuff that can happen with LSD. And you can see how there's so much more firing with LSD on the right in a functional MRI compared to us just being at rest. And for those of you who have done psychedelics, you'll notice that you'll be looking at a tree and you can see the most intricate elements of the bark or the leaves. You can see different colors and auric patterns that you would never see in a normal conscious brain. And so we're actually enhancing the neuronal tract activations, our ability of our parietal cortex or visual cortexes to see better. So it almost gives us like this high definition super capacity to see things that we normally would not see in a normal conscious state. And in doing so, it's connecting and making all these neurons and dendrites commune and grow in a more powerful way. And here's our buddy Ram Dass, wish he was still here. And I got a couple more quotes from him, but the next message you need is always right where you are, and here you are. The game is not becoming somebody, it's about becoming nobody, right? So it's about losing our ego. So types of psychedelics. There's dissociative psychedelics. I use a fair amount of ketamine in my practice because it's legal. And we use it a lot for depression to help people get that reset in a way that I would love to do with mushrooms, but I can't quite yet. And the cool thing about ketamine is it has a fairly effective mechanism of relieving depression, about 70%, I would say, compared to regular antidepressants that are 30%, no better than placebo. Yeah, everybody thinks, oh, I'm taking Prozac, I'm gonna be happy, but no, the results are no better than placebo. And that's a huge trial of over like 100,000 people, retrospective review. But ketamine has a lot of magic in that it also stimulates brain-derived neurotrophic factors. So when I say BDNF, just think miracle grow for the brain, okay?
Tell us more about what ketamine is.
Yeah, so ketamine is a molecule that we discovered, I think in the 50s or 60s. It was used as a tranquilizer originally. It was also utilized in the Vietnam War when they were transporting these poor veterans that were, blown up and in a lot of pain that would put them out. But then they eventually figured out that at lower doses, at about 5 mg per kilogram, come on now, we can get this spiritual transformative psychedelic state that will take you into this state of blissful oneness, is how I would describe it. That is somewhat like a mushroom journey, but shorter, typically lasting about an hour. It's a great molecule, and I think everybody should experience it sometime in their life. And it can be a great one, not only for depression and anxiety and PTSD, but also simply for a reset. It's a great one. It does induce feelings of detachment. Sometimes you just don't even know you're on the planet because you have so much ego dissolution with this, similar to a deep drop-in with mushrooms. And it can lead to a sensory distortion. You may not feel your fingers very much because it's got that anesthetic quality to it, of course, and a floating sensation. But some people will talk about the K-hole, and the K-hole is basically you're in nowhere land, and you just in outer space, you're kind of scared, like, oh my God, have I left my body? Am I coming back to planet Earth or not? It can be kind of scary, but it's a very powerful way of resetting when you go a little deeper there. MDMA, confidentially, one of my favorites. It is an amazing molecule. I was really bummed that the FDA did not approve it. I think it was honestly due to Big Pharma being concerned about its high efficacy and people not being stuck on antidepressants for the rest of their life. They're like, oh, we're gonna lose the market share of all of our SSRIs, and people are able to get 3 doses of MDMA and clear all their traumas, right? So they shot it down, but maybe put out some good vibes for it. In the next couple of years, it will become available. There are luckily a lot of underground facilitators that work with this. You just have to be very safe about who you work with and that they've tested it for scary stuff that could be out there, fentanyl contamination and whatnot. So the interesting thing about MDMA is it kind of releases a lot of different neurotransmitters fairly rapidly. Serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, norepinephrine. The oxytocin is the one that makes everybody want to hug each other when you're doing MDMA. The dopamine is kind of the open your throat chakra, and you're able to tell your partner, hey, I really don't like it when you leave the toilet seat up or whatever it may be. But you're able to say it in a loving way that people are not offended. They're like, oh, well, thank you, honey, for telling me that. And I really wish you would shave your butt or whatever, little things like that just become like a loving response. Okay. It is a miracle molecule, I will just tell you that. So I spent a few $1,000s, got certified in MDMA therapy with MAPS the other year, and of course now I can't use it, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed that it becomes legal and I can do it in my office, but we'll see what happens. Again, it helps with bonding and social connection, such as, especially through the release of oxytocin. The atypical psychedelics, many of you have probably heard about ibogaine. This one comes from Africa, and it's a root, and they've extracted it and created the ibogaine from iboga. And what they found is that this extremely long journey kind of creates this replay of your life over 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, and you're able to go back, and if you're a heroin addict, you're like, oh my God, what have I been doing, destroying my body, why am I doing this? And it's been highly effective in helping people kick narcotics, and heroin. And if anything should be approved very soon, it should be ibogaine. Right now, they have some great treatment centers in Mexico, and I'm very hopeful that with Jerry Polis and other people, we'll be able to get it here in Colorado, but it's gonna take a little minute to make that happen. It's a little scary from the cardiovascular standpoint, and you wanna go to a facility where they can do cardiac monitoring, because there can be some arrhythmias that occur, and you wanna have a heart scan, that kind of stuff before you do it. Cannabis, a lot of people don't consider cannabis to be a psychedelic, but I will tell you, if you do cannabis, THC, as an edible form, and you combine indica sativa and a little CBN, it's very psychedelic. It is beautiful. It is, obviously can alter your perception. Time sense is really interesting, and music kind of slows down for me when I'm particularly doing the higher doses, around 20 milligrams or so orally. One of the interesting things is with THC, if you take too much, it knocks the BDNF down, the thing that makes your neurons grow, but if you take just a little, like 2 milligrams or so, it seems to support the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So I think it's okay to do some high doses here and there for a journey, but if you're one of those that's taking a lot at night, like 5 milligrams, I'd cut it back a little bit, because it could be impairing some neural regeneration. And that's just based on some recent studies there. CBD, which is the non-psychoactive form, very anti-inflammatory, great for a lot of different things, whether it's brain inflammation. After COVID, it's great to take a lot of CBD, like 60 to 100 milligrams a few times a day. It's also great in terms of stimulating BDNF. So I myself, I take CBD at night with a little melatonin, and to the tune of about 60 to 100 milligrams of CBD, about 5 of melatonin. And then that gives me a deeper sleep, as well as the anti-inflammatory benefits of CBD for the brain too. So it can be kind of a nice regenerative, healthy thing to consider. Magnesium can also be good.
BDNF?
Yeah, so BDNF is the brain-derived neurotropic factor, and that's what stimulates neurons to grow and connect. And think of it as like a tree, and the tree just starts to branch out with more limbs, and those limbs are then connecting to the other limbs of other trees in the forest, which are the neurons interconnecting. And then there's little spines that come off, and I have a good picture I'll show you here in a minute.
What kind of CBD are you using?
I like the Charlotte's Web, but I think there's so many good ones. I hate to really, say one in particular. What's your favorite, Larry?
What are you using, cannabis or hemp?
Mine is a mixed blend. Yeah.
We've been using hemp for sleep.
Yeah. So you have CBD in there. That's probably just as good. I think most of them have said the whole plant is better than just CBD pure, from what I've heard from the experts. So I would do a blended, whole plant CBD or hemp, like Larry's talking about. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And then, so I think therapeutically, I've also found, this is a little sidebar, if somebody's having a really difficult trip on LSD or mushrooms, and they're kind of psychomotor agitation, as I call it, they're walking around and, just kind of freaking out, give them a good dose of CBD, and it will totally chill them out. Same thing if you're just feeling anxious during the day, you can just do a little CBD. It's like the best natural thing. And the only other thing that I use for my friends that are having too rough of a trip is Neuromag, which is magnesium glycinate. So that combo, Neuromag plus 60 to 100 milligrams of CBD, is amazing for calming the nerves in a good way. DMT, how many DMT people are in here? There we go, okay. DMT's freaking amazing, and I'm so excited that there's a lot of great development going on, particularly up at Promega up in Madison, Wisconsin, and other places where they're looking at long-acting DMT and how it may help treat depression, and then you can have a longer journey with it, so it could be amazing. Traditionally now, if you're wanting to experience DMT, it's going to be with the Sonoran desert toad that you see up there, cute little guy. He has these salivary glands that they'll milk, and hopefully they'll do it in a kind, gentle way. They dry out the saliva that has the toxin in it, as they call it, but it's the DMT, and then it forms these crystals, and you smoke it in a vape, and then it goes into your body, and it gives you the most powerful psychedelic journey you could ever have. It's beyond LSD, beyond anything. You're completely ego dissolved. That's with the bufo type, the 5-methyl. The other one, which is found in ayahuasca and mimosa, is an NM-DMT. That's beautiful and amazing, and I'm sure most of you have done Aya. It is longer acting. This one's 15 minutes. This one's more like 4 hours. And the cool thing about ayahuasca is the DMT would be gone very quickly, but the chacruna, which is, it's the ayahuasca vine that stabilizes it, but it's the chacruna in there that actually has the DMT. So it's a combination of the two that somehow magically the Shipibo shamans figured out these two plants synergistically allow it to be stabilized and effective for 4 hours. I mean, that makes you think, yeah, they were channeling from some greater consciousness, or somebody came down and said, oh, hey, these are the two you need, guys. More about oxytocin. That's the oxytocin molecule back there. Of course, we call it the love molecule. Sometimes people get confused with, oh, he's talking about oxycodone or something, and I was on a chat board with ketamine, and I said, oh, it's amazing to add oxytocin to ketamine, and this physician replied back, oh my God, what are you talking about? Why would you ever do a narcotic, in addition to ketamine? I'm like, you dumbass, it's like, you're a physician, you don't know the difference between oxytocin and oxycontin and oxycodone, So anyway, yeah, we get some physicians that are not so clever sometimes. I won't say anymore. But there's great natural ways to boost oxytocin, so I would like for everybody to stand up and find somebody to hug right now. Oxytocin, I'll give you a hug. And it has to be a deep hug, okay? All right, those are good hugs. And everybody can give me a hug at the end. See, don't you feel much better now? I think my work is done. I'm out of here. So, oxytocin's where it's at, baby, I'm telling you. There's so many benefits, and I'm going to just share some things about where we can get oxytocin. Of course, we just released some oxytocin, giving each other hugs, so congratulations. Being here in community releases oxytocin, right? Being with family releases oxytocin. Petting your dog, holding your kitten, all that stuff is love and creates oxytocin. We need more oxytocin in the world. I'd love to get a t-shirt that says "God Oxytocin" or something. I think, as mentioned, social interactions, loved ones, expressing gratitude. I have gratitude for everybody that shows up here. Thank you for being here. It raises my oxytocin level. Mindfulness and meditation, because you're relaxing and you're having positive emotions, you're oming, etc. That releases oxytocin. Exercise, dancing with others. And then we could even give you natural oxytocin that's made bioidentically. You can put it on your tongue and you can have a lot of benefits from that, and it's not going to be harmful to you. I prescribe that to people as a nasal spray or as a sublingual, and it can be used for health benefits or for improved intimacy with their partners. One of the books I wrote is about psychedelics and intimacy and sacred sexuality. And one of the things I've really noted is that if you drop into a sacred sexual space with your partner, you're able to let go of your ego. You're able to open your hearts more deeply because your default mode network's gone offline, right? And you're not giving a flip about, the bills you got to pay tomorrow or whatever. You're feeling more empathy. You're flowing energies without judgment. You're more in flow with your partner. You're honoring, you're respecting each other. You're dancing these energies. You're spiraling them in a sense. It's beautiful. You're able to open your heart into the cosmos oftentimes if you get really into a deep space. You're able to honor and respect each other. And if you go to the deepest states, you'll merge into one, that divine feminine, that divine masculine merging, and then just feeling as you're one beautiful ball of love floating in the middle of the cosmos, right? It's amazing. And then you go into the state of timeless oneness and ecstasy, and just imagine the amount of oxytocin you're releasing at that point. You know, it's like an atomic bomb going off, right? And again, this crazy book I wrote describes this a little bit more, but that's basically the nutshell of it all. MDMA really promotes oxytocin release, and that's one of the reasons I think so many people truly love it. You get that increased empathy and social bonding, the empathogenic effects as you work with MDMA lasts for about 4 to 6 hours. There's this element of reducing fear and anxiety, and as mentioned, you're able to share things that you may have been a little bit shy about sharing, and sometimes you're a little bit too open sometimes, but I think it's good just to be able to share in a very open chakra, throat chakra way. And then you're able to process and express emotions, which is why it's so therapeutic for people that have had PTSD. And as a reminder, PTSD could be a major trauma, but a lot of people have PTSD from a lot of micro traumas, and it can be hundreds of little traumas throughout your life that need to be cleared. And this can basically open up your energy body and allow you to clear that. And I think what happens is we have this closed chakra, we hold it into our energy field, and we're not able to let go of that guard, and as a result, we're stuck with that thorn in our side for decades. And as a result, it creates stress, it creates anxiety, it creates depression. So if we're able to truly let go of that shit by doing a deep drop-in with MDMA, maybe combine that MDMA with mushrooms or even with LSD, believe it or not, you can have just amazing blowout success stories. So here's some of the amazing benefits of oxytocin release. It actually reduces neural inflammation. So you're reducing that inflammation in your brain, makes it very happy in terms of treating neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, even multiple sclerosis. It enhances neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is that ability to learn new things, to learn how to play guitar, to learn how to speak Japanese, whatever you're interested in. And then it also helps with neural regeneration. The neurons are able to connect and grow out their branches, as we're talking about, the dendritic spines. Because you're in this loving space, you're reducing cortisol. There's a study that I talked about in my other book where they showed how people under stress, their cortex actually shrinks as a result of high cortisol. But then they would go to a meditation retreat, and even a 2-week meditation retreat on fMRI or MRI would show the expansion of the cortex of the brain. 2 weeks is all it took, and it expanded because they weren't in the crazy life that they left, you know, to be in an ashram or wherever they were at. So it really does work. It's been documented objectively. The social connectivity is demonstrated in improving longevity within the Blue Zones movie series, as well as the book that came out originally. Shows that those that live together, you know, like in Italy, 4 generations live longer because they've got mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and everybody all together. It makes a difference. And so more oxytocin in those households leads to greater longevity. Cognitive benefits, it can help with memory and recall. It can help some of the symptoms that can be present in autism. I have a son that's on the spectrum mildly, and he's old enough now. We've done some journeys, and it's really helped improve his ability to be more empathetic, to be able to have eye contact with individuals. He's less shy. It's been a game changer. I've met a gentleman in Denver who wrote LSD cured my autism, but he also speaks about, you know, oxytocin and MDMA, how it all played a role too. So you're able to rewire autistic people to be more empathetic and more, you know, interpersonal, I guess is what I'm trying to say as well. It slows the aging of the brain, And then, as mentioned, it can help with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So, a little more on how this all works. It enhances that neuroplasticity, which is its ability to shake up that snow globe to reorganize itself into a more healthy pattern of connections. This happens at the molecular cellular network level basis. It's almost like thinking of defragging our hard drive on our computer and allowing it to run much faster. Maybe we're adding a little bit of extra RAM in there too, so it's able to process more rapidly. We get that neural regeneration, and we get the dendritic spine growth. We also get that activation through those 5-HT2A receptors. Again, the release of BDNF, and then there's another big thing that can happen is mTOR activation. How many of you are familiar with rapamycin or sirolimus? Just a few of you. So rapamycin is named actually because it came from Rapa Nui. Rapa Nui is Easter Island, and I was lucky enough to go there about 7 or 8 years ago and see the moais and commune, some spiritual drop-ins there. And on the moais, which are those big heads that you see on the platforms, grows this moss, or this lichen that has actually rapamycin, and it's in kind of a erythromycin class. But in a nutshell, this magical element that they discovered on this island in the middle of the Pacific can slow your aging process by 30%. It can enhance your health span by 30% as well as your lifespan. Now, most of us are more about, I want a better health span, so I want to be able to ski, into my 80s and, have a great mind, etc. I don't really care to be 100, but I want to be strong at least in my 80s. So rapamycin is a key one there. And what we found is that when we combine psychedelics with rapamycin, there's some magic synergy that occurs. So for many of my patients that are doing ketamine, I will actually give them rapamycin before we do it. And you can also, myself in particular, you can take rapamycin before you do a journey with mushrooms or LSD, and it improves what we call the critical period that I'll talk about a little bit more, which improves our neuroplasticity, neural regeneration, everything. So basically turbocharges the psychedelic brain benefits by adding in rapamycin. Hopefully that wasn't too much for you guys. So here's what BDNF looks like on a molecular structure. It's a peptide. Peptides are these amino acid sequences. The big peptide that you hear about today is, Ozempic, and all the other, Mounjaro, those are peptides. Oxytocin is a peptide. So peptides are pretty cool molecules that cruise through your body, and they can activate regeneration. They can activate, the neural growth that we've been talking about. We use a lot of other peptides to enhance growth hormone, etc., in our practice too. And so the mTOR pathway, its anti-aging elements are crucial for protein synthesis, cellular growth, which are very necessary for neuroplasticity. They help with that growth of new dendritic spines. So again, the branches of the tree and the neuron are reaching out, and is a more fuller tree. And then again, if we combine rapamycin with ketamine or rapamycin with mushrooms, we can get some magic happening there. And here's just a picture of a dendrite and the trees, and dendrite means tree, I think maybe in Latin, hence the name. And then these little things over here on this point, these are the dendritic spines coming off, the tiny ones, and those are all stimulated, particularly by rapamycin and by BDNF. So they've seen those particularly in animal studies where they unfortunately will sacrifice a rat to examine the tissue. DMT has been shown to be very powerful in supporting that, which is why I'm excited about that one becoming a little bit more mainstream. And so, recapping on the default mode network disruption, the benefits are you have that enhanced connectivity between the brain, both hemispheres, front and back, etc., up, down, all around. You have reorganization of those neural circuits that will disrupt harmful thoughts that you may have developed that are kind of ruminating. And then again, it helps you let go of that shit. The anti-inflammatory properties are, again, another huge benefit. When we think about what causes aging, a lot of it is inflammation, right? And what creates a lot of inflammation, bad lifestyle, diabetes, horrible diet, smoking, all that stuff. So anything we can do to cool off the fire on a functional medicine basis will make you live longer and make you feel better. So psychedelics will actually work as an anti-inflammatory too. Who knew? There are other natural anti-inflammatories sidebar like turmeric, grapeseed extract, etc. Antioxidants can help with that too. So critical periods are these periods of time where after you've had a journey, your brain's still kind of open and in this mode of learning and wanting to process what was happening. During that period of time is a great time to do integration with your facilitator. It's a great time to reflect and have insights on a new book or a new idea of where you want to travel to or solving a problem. When we think about Watson and Crick, they were tripping on LSD when they came up with the double helix, no shit. So thank you, LSD, okay? And it was probably during their critical period that they realized, aha, there's something I just came into my mind after doing this journey. While I'm in the shower, I think I'm gonna scribble it, research a little bit more. You can open up that period of the critical period by doing that rapamycin as well. So instead of having a week after a mushroom journey, you may get 2 weeks, they hypothesize, as a result of doing rapamycin. And then the long-term changes that they're seeing is more dendritic spines and greater complexity of the networks. What does that mean? It makes you smarter and stronger. Cofactors that can enhance your psychedelic brain benefits. Of course, daily mindful-based practices, a healthy anti-inflammatory diet, regular exercise. Exercise, by the way, also stimulates BDNF, as you would imagine. Positive mindset, being social, as we talked about, loving touch, sexual activity, music, and sacred geometry. Shout out to Greg and his Unity Grade here. All the other good things. Set and setting, that's a big buzzword that everybody uses these days, particularly with Michael Pollan's book. And it is very important. I think when we go into a journey, we're thinking about doing mushrooms, we're always gonna think, okay, am I gonna do this outside on a mountain meadow? Am I gonna do it in my home with some music? Am I gonna be with a friend, or am I gonna be with a group? All those kind of factors come in there. Do I want some aromatherapy? What would that aromatherapy be? All of those things are very important to analyze and consider, because it can pretty much make or break your whole journey. And if you're doing it at home with a bunch of kids and dogs running around barking and you're in a different planet, it's not going to be a pleasant deal for you, right? And then the other thing is, how are you feeling before you drop in? Are you really having a lot of stuff that you need to work through? Is it premature to be dropping in? Probably so. Maybe go visit with your therapist for a week, and then when you're ready to do the deep work, proceed. Here's me walking down a meadow. We have a family place up in Breck, so I'm up there quite a bit, and I'm lucky enough to where I can just go out in the backyard into the national forest and hike around. And I created this little space over here up on Peak 8, which is not on the ski runs, but off to the side, and put my little prayer flags up there, and I'll just go and journey and drop in for 12 hours sometimes. The mosquitoes can be a challenge, so that's not the best part of the setting, but I spray myself down and I bring blankets and all that kind of stuff. But I found that being by a stream and just hearing the natural flow of water is so grounding. I might bring a little speaker to play some natural Native American Carlos Nakai flute, something like that. I might bring some crystals, some sacred geometry, you know, and other things to protect me from the rain. But being in nature is my favorite place to trip, for sure. I think being around fire is amazing for, you know, journeys. Sometimes when I'm really dropping deep, I need to go lie down in a dark space with, you know, eye shades on and all. This is in Durango this summer, and it was crazy. My friend took this picture, and you can see there's like a dragon in the flame coming up towards my shirt. And it's like, how on earth did that happen? I was like, well, I was in that space of magic, you know, working with things. I was out in the redwoods, this is probably 8 years ago, and Jonathan Goldman got these speakers for me that were from a friend of his. He had an extra set, and he's like, hey, you just put these on your chest and they'll resonate, didgeridoo or whatever, you know, my music, whatever you want to play. So I threw them in my day pack, and I just laid down in the forest and just forest bathed, you know, listening to didgeridoo, tripping on mushrooms. And my hike was supposed to be like an hour and a half for the park ranger. It was 6 hours. And I was using my phone to find my car at the end of it. Yeah, it was the best journey ever, connecting to the trees out there. I have a place in Durango, and I just built this geodesic dome out on the property. And I had a bunch of friends that came up that were at an ayahuasca journey with me in Costa Rica from a couple of years ago. And they came from everywhere, even like South Africa. Cal flew in. And the weather was kind of crappy, but it was perfect because we were able to stay out in nature under the dome and connect to all this crazy weather, lightning and rain, and the color of the rain shifted into rainbow colors. And then I have, you can see I've got like a little sacred geometric form up there. I like portaled through that. And then you can see we're just dancing in there. And that was a 3-day weekend that we did of different psychedelics. It was one of the most amazing weekends ever. This is when we were kind of dropping in really deep, laying down, and you know, the other one was probably a little later when we were coming out of it. And here's the crazy group. This guy is the guitarist. We've got his guitar in the background there. But all walks of life. There's a nurse, there's a gal that's a chef, this guy on the far right is a mechanic for Tesla, she's an architect, he's a lineman, he hangs those big old lines on those you know, massive power lines, you know, after hurricanes and all. So very diverse group. And then the gal right in front of me is a ICU nurse. So just an amazing, diverse group of people that I connected with a couple years ago for ayahuasca down there. So there have been studies on psychedelics and how it'll help hyperconnect us to nature. Terence McKenna has this theory that it's a natural evolutionary thing, that mushrooms want to connect us to nature because nature is where they live, right? So it makes sense. If you become more in love with trees in the forest, you're not going to take them down, more mushrooms are going to grow. So it's a really nice adaptive feature. We know that plants have intelligence, so they're giving us that intelligence of saving the forests and the land. And they did a 2017 study, which if anybody wants the references, I can email all these references to you. It showed increased nature relatedness months after the experience. So it's not just a short term, I love nature and you go home. It lasts for months and probably years, I would guess. LSD, the same thing. Ayahuasca, for sure. I think they all deeply connect you to nature. I don't think they've done one on Wachuma or San Pedro, which is the mescaline or the peyote, but I'm sure they equally will do that too. Music and psychedelics. I absolutely have to have music when I'm dropping in, unless I'm in nature with a stream or you know, somebody singing. So I have a lot of playlists and whatnot that I utilize when I'm dropping in. I mean, there are periods of time where it's so intense that I need to turn off the music, but most of the time I found that music will actually help my brain light up a little bit more. It improves the geometry, the color. There's a phenomenon called synesthesia. So with synesthesia, you actually get a lighting up of the colors of dodecahedron that may come into your field, or some other 5-dimensional object that's spinning around. And I've even seen, like on ayahuasca journeys, where they're singing an Icaro, and it just starts to expand and get more complex in terms of what I'm seeing in my visual fields as they're closed. But then all of a sudden they stop. I'm like, hey, wait, don't turn it off. Just keep singing. So it's a very real, powerful element for psychedelic medicine. I think lots of different genres, but it needs to be kind of a calm, quiet, mindful type of music. I like a lot of shamanic music, Yaima, Desert Dwellers, Paringi, people like that are really amazing. Mantra music, Deva Premal, Snatampur, great too. Sometimes some light EDM can be good, but I think you just got to kind of curate your playlist before you drop in. I have a couple playlists. If you guys ever want to check them out, it's called Ashtar Plant Medicine and Ashtar Heart Medicine on Spotify. You're welcome to listen to that and get some ideas and put together your own playlist or use mine. Handpan is really magical, crystal bowls, didgeridoo, and human voice is just amazing, guitar, all that. Get up and dance. I think the dancing thing usually isn't going to be in the first half of the journey. It'd be more towards the latter half is when you want to dance and move with your partner or your friends. And sometimes you don't want to dance, but I mean, just be in flow with it, I think is the main thing. Don't feel like you need it. Never have an agenda, just be in flow with all this stuff. And then again, the importance of integration. It helps you solidify your insights. Oh, what did that mean when I saw that spaceship up there? What did it mean when I saw my great-great-grandmother, whatever. How do I grow from this experience? How do I deal with this anaconda that came and ate me during an ayahuasca journey? What does that mean? Social connections. That you just saw everybody that was on my ayahuasca journey showed up to be there. In Durango, talk about a social connection, flying thousands of miles because we were so bonded just by doing medicine work together. And then, it does support your mental health, your well-being. It fosters huge spiritual growth and awakening. Ram Dass would say, LSD was the door that opened to the house of awakening and spiritual growth. You have to open that door. It could be one of the doors that is open for you using psychedelics, and then doing that deeper work on your own allows you to take it in quantum leaps over a much shorter period of time. And then it can, encourage accountability and action. So if you're doing harmful behaviors like you're a smoker and you have this insight from grandmother ayahuasca saying, what the F are you smoking for, Stop that, and then you go home, you're like, all right, I'm gonna stop, and you quit, and it's done. Microdosing, I have, like every day, a patient asks me about microdosing. I think microdosing is amazing. I do it periodically myself, but I'm kind of a macrodoser, so I don't really need to microdose. I honestly, I probably drop in at least twice a month. On a Saturday, I'm not seeing patients. Maybe I can get some good insight. This is what's wrong with you. But microdosing is a great way to go because it kind of gives you that nice low-level stimulation of BDNF, the nice creativity, the nice anti-inflammatory effect. It's cheap. You can grow your own. It's decriminalized. You can give a donation to your buddy who loves to grow, and then you can grind them up in a coffee grinder, and you can either put them in capsules or just take a little spoon of it every day, and you're good. Most people are doing 4 days out of the week, 3 days off. And we've not had a lot of great trials on it yet, but I'll guarantee you it works well. I've seen plenty of my patients get great responses from it. There's a study called the Microdose.me study that Paul Stamets has been involved with, and they've been able to show with the cell phone app that your tap speed like doubles or triples within a month. So we know that your motor function is improving, so your cognitive function is too. That's probably gonna generate some studies fairly soon. And then they did a single 25 milligram dose. This is more of the concentrated psilocybin, and they showed that it was associated with a rapid and sustained antidepressant effect measured on these depression scores compared with placebo, no adverse effects. This is from 2023. So we've got some good preliminary data. Hopefully we'll see more in the future. And then here's some more modern medical tips. around psychedelic therapy that we can blend in. So a really important thing to recognize is our brain sucks 20% of our energy, but only accounts for 2% of our body weight because it's got all those mitochondria that are working hard to keep us thinking. We have to optimize our mitochondria. So I was talking about inflammation being a big factor. The other big factor is powering your brain up in your body with mitochondrial support. How do we power up your mitochondria? Most of you know of CoQ10. How many of you know about NAD? Good, fair amount. So NAD is another hugely important cofactor that helps for the production of ATP through the Krebs cycle, NAD to NADH. That's a whole nother lecture. But if you're able to dial in these three guys, NAD, CoQ10, and methylene blue, it'll be a game changer for you. Methylene blue is the old thing that we used to use to stain our cells and microbiology and whatnot. You can now take it as a prescription capsule, and you can take it 3 times a week or every day. And the methylene blue helps with the electron transport chain system within the mitochondria. And then you help with the Krebs cycle with CoQ10 and the NAD, and you're basically fueling the jet engine of mitochondria to allow your neurons to reproduce, to grow, and to fire more effectively. What have I found, particularly with methylene blue? I'm much more sensitive to psychedelics. So while I used to be doing 5 grams of mushrooms, I can do 2 grams, and I'm tripping just as hard because I've fired up the mitochondrial function and I'm feeling much better. I've also found that after a fairly intense journey, if I do a little bit more of this, I recover more quickly and my brain functions back to normal in no time. There's all these post-roll protocols, but most of them don't include methylene blue. Red light, how many of you use red light? Yeah, awesome. Red light is so unrecognized. Larry has a great red light setup at his place. I use it at home, both on my head, my full body, full panel, It can help activate the methylene blue and give it more bioavailability and action in the mitochondria. And then it also can help with mitochondrial function, cellular health, lymphatic flow, blood flow, etc. So everybody should be doing red light therapy in their home in some shape or form. And it could just be a tiny panel or a little pad. Great stuff. Peptide therapies are one of these therapies that longevity docs like myself do. There's not a whole lot of us in Colorado, but I've done a lot of training at the Peptide Institute and through the A4M anti-aging group, and it's magical stuff. You're not going to find it at Walgreens. It's one of those things that has to be formulated at a compounding pharmacy, and these can be utilized with your psychedelics to further enhance synaptic growth, dendritic growth, to help with reducing inflammation, like the BPC-157 body protection compound. We've got Selanx, C-Max, Dihexa, cerebrolysin. All these can be given like as a nasal spray, and then typically at night to kind of help people that are having mild cognitive impairment and they want to take it up another notch. So I don't think we're ever going to have like a single silver bullet. That's what Big Pharma always wants, is a silver bullet. The reality is everything is an alchemy blend of different things from the lifestyle, modern medicine, plant medicine, shamanic energy activities, etc. And finding that alchemy that is personalized for you is the solution. So questions I have for the research community is, will cross-training of psychedelics further enhance neuroplasticity, creativity, cognition, and spiritual awakening? My answer would be yes, but probably need a study to show that. Can the addition of mTOR inhibition with rapamycin further enhance the duration of benefits of psychedelic therapy? We think so, but we don't have a big trial to prove that either. But I would say from my own personal standpoint, being a seasoned psychonaut, yeah, I can feel it. And then can mitochondrial optimization with methylene blue and NAD help improve my sensitivity to psychedelics? And absolutely yes for me, and absolutely yes for my friends that I've advised this regimen for. So if you want a deeper, wilder trip, you have to pump up your mitochondrial health, you gotta reduce the inflammation, and you gotta do everything you can in terms of other lifestyle things. Otherwise, you're kind of be banging on a dead horse there trying to get them to run, right? So putting it all together, hopefully I haven't put you guys to sleep. We want to optimize our diet, natural, we want it to be anti-inflammatory. Dr. Dale Breedenson wrote a book called The End of Alzheimer's. He's a great guy. Phil back here, shout out to Phil with Forum Health. He has had him speak for the medical group that I'm with, that I'm affiliated with him there. And Dale wrote a dietary program. There's more or less a ketogenic diet that can really help people that are having cognitive impairment. We found that keto diets can really help reduce inflammation, can reduce amyloid plaque and whatnot, so that's something to consider. But at least an anti-inflammatory diet and not a bunch of junk food. Mindfulness, social interaction, sex life to bump up that oxytocin, loving touch, adding in the music, the dance, the connectedness to nature, considering microdosing protocols, considering rapamycin, considering peptide therapy, and then again considering mitochondrial optimization. Here's another Ram Dass quote. If I go to the place of myself that is love, and you go into that place in yourself that is love, we are together in love. Then you and I are truly in love, the state of being love. That's the entrance to oneness. Here's my goofy books. If you guys are interested, I got some up here. This one's about changing your DNA through mindfulness. This is about all the nutty grid work that I do around the world, placing crystals and doing medicine wheels to try to heal the planet. And then my last book under my pen name is about how to utilize psychedelics in a very sacred sexuality manner to enhance relationship with your partner. And then, yeah, if you guys need any help from the deeper psychedelic medicine level, you can reach out to my office. I'll have some cards up here. And then, like I said, I'm gonna commit to getting that book out in 2025. So hopefully I could just like send out an email and say, hey, here it is. If you want it, you can get it on Amazon or something. So I'll try to be a little more in-depth and a little more concise in that. I put this talk together in about 2 nights, so my apologies, this was a little all over the place. But thank you so much. Yeah, shoot me with some questions. I'll see if I can
Dr.
answer.
Grover, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. So there's going to be a lot of questions. If you have questions, please walk up here and line up, and we'll make it real easy so that we're not running around the room trying to get to you. So come on up, and we'll start with question number 1 from Greg.
So you spoke of rapamycin quite a bit. Is that available without prescription, and how can it be found?
Go to Easter Island.
Okay. Did you bring back a piece? Can it be grown in Colorado?
No, I wish, right? You can get it pretty reasonably. It's rarely covered by insurance, does need a prescription. But the regimen with it is 6 milligrams once a week, and it ends up being about $18 a dose. So it's not much more, than your weekly Starbucks budget. And most docs will prescribe it, but they may, want to do a little bit of depth research of why are you doing this? Because so many docs have no idea about rapamycin for anti-aging, unfortunately. They're not in the preventative longevity mode. Yeah, you can get it. You can even get it on the Amazon pharmacy pretty cheap. We're going to offer, through my nurse, we have like a rapamycin program. If people can't get their regular docs to prescribe it, it'll be very affordable. They just do an intake with her, and then we'll prescribe it once we check some boxes on things. The main thing is it has a little bit of an immune suppressant, so if somebody has an existing cancer or they're undergoing treatment for cancer, rapamycin is contraindicated. Yeah.
Okay, does it have any particular pharmaceutical name, or it's just rapamycin?
Rapamycin is also called sirolimus.
Sirolimus.
Sirolimus, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
Thank you for that excellent talk, and I guess people here are used to me playing a devil's advocate role, so I'll apologize in advance for a slightly complex and challenging question. But I support psychedelic advocacy, and over the decades I've taken everything you've mentioned multiple times except ibogaine. But I think that there's a tendency in the advocating for these therapies to one-sidedly emphasize the positive and to have an approach that's unpsychological in the following way. These substances affect the psyche, which is not reducible, I think, to neurological materialism. And also the experience is famously super variable and novelty promoting. And my idea about something that promotes novelty is that the outer edge of light and the outer edge of dark are both potentiated. And therefore the novelty or the variability is the increased amplitude between these expanded poles. And therefore we cannot give short shrift to the shadow or the dark side of some of these experiences. And I think that every talk advocating these must have the black box warning that a substantial, if small percentage, will have a psychotic break if they have a vulnerability to that. And so I'll use myself as an example to show the variability and how the dark can be included, because over my many decades of many different substances, I've discovered that it will tend to open a specific channel in the collective unconscious to people that have died of what we could call undignified deaths. And that's what I will be exposed to. And my hypothesis about that is my dad was a medic during D-Day, and everybody he knew in the war died. And he had PTSD into his 90s because no doubt he experienced such gruesome deaths. And so therefore, perhaps in some sympathetic way, that channel is particularly open in me. So my experiences will be about that. They're not healing except in the sense of wholeness and including the darkness and maybe by way of ordeal poison, but they're certainly highly stressful and traumatic while they're happening. So this is just an example of the extreme variability of these substances. And so when we talk about all the neurochemical factors, which are physical causes that catalyze the experience, I think we should also include, since most of us are aware that through near-death experience research, for example, that consciousness transcends neurochemistry. And so with some of the functional MRI scans showing electrical activity to actually be suppressed, counterintuitively during mushroom and acid experiences, it may be that these substances are merely monkey wrenching the biochemical correlate to consciousness, and therefore we are transcending neurological materialist factors to have an experience that is more removed from organic chemistry and therefore is subject to an infinite variability. And that a lot of that variability also will include dark experiences as well.
Yeah.
So the question is, what do you think about those kind of factors? Should we, in talking about promoting psychedelics, talk about the dark potential? I know that can make it vulnerable to the set and setting idea, but does that need to be acknowledged? And should the non-material aspect of consciousness be acknowledged even as we talk about the neurotropic factors?
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack, but very good, deep thoughts there. No, I agree. We should talk about some of the potential dark elements or the disruption of the psyche that can occur. In my first slide that I kind of glazed over quickly in the disclaimer, I talked about making sure that you work with an expert who's going to basically do an intake. We don't want to be doing this if you're bipolar, if you're schizophrenic, or other unstable issues. And I strongly encourage everybody to work with a very well-trained, certified facilitator who knows how to deal with episodes of grief and anxiety and other dark things, entities, etc., that come in. So, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something, as I'm working on this book, I do want to put that in there. I've had some dark journeys myself. I've been able to work through them. I've been able to kind of, somewhat feel into where they may have come from, but I think that's the way the universe is composed, and we have to recognize that At some point, we're gonna see that kind of journey, even if we're all about butterflies and, and a happy world around us, we're gonna see some darkness. So, yeah, I would definitely encourage everybody to be smart about the facilitators they work with, to do the work beforehand in terms of the preparation of the setting, and then to be ready to integrate and do the deep work if shit hits the fan. And it's not a horrible thing if dark stuff comes in. I think most of us are going to be able to work through it and do fine. And there'll be that very rare percentage of people that are going to be disrupted in a way that is harmful, but it can happen. But I think there's a lot more harm done with modern medical pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceutical accidents and side effects that occur than we see with psychedelics, and a hell of a lot more harm done with tobacco and alcohol and narcotics than we'll ever see with psychedelics.
Thank you.
Next question.
I'm reading a lot about methylene blue lately.
Oh, good.
And yeah, and the recommended dose all over the map, depending on who you're reading. What do you recommend for methylene blue?
Yeah. Hey, Maya, what's our methylene blue dose? Is it 100 milligrams?
It's 10 milligrams,
10?
but you start at 10 and then you can do 20 all the way up to 25. There's many doses you can do, but the initial dose you start at is 10.
As a regular basis.
Yeah. So we do 10.
Yeah, just
10.
10 daily. Like
Yeah.
I do 10 daily. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I found that 10 has been perfect for me. I tend to do it most days of the week, but there's a lot of folks that are doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like Peter Attia was doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you've got a good methylene blue, it'll make your pee blue or green if you're a little dehydrated, that yellow mixing in there. But if you're finding, I'm pretty solid blue, just doing 3 days a week, that's kind of my litmus test for saying, yeah, we're good 3 times a week.
Where do you recommend buying it?
We get ours from, she's my peripheral brain, I'm sorry.
You have to get it from a pharmacy. It is a prescription, but if you contact me at his office, I can help you out with that and we can get you started.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Next question.
Hi. A lot of information and this talk centered around the brain and all, but what about the rest of the nervous system? You know, I mean, some of us old guys just have good old-fashioned peripheral neuropathy or
Yeah.
a problem with an optic nerve or whatever it is. What kind of nerve regeneration or
Yeah.
plasticity comes besides within the brain?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because yeah, beyond the central nervous system, it absolutely helps with the peripheral nervous system in terms of neural regeneration. And I think that even people with spinal cord injuries may have some benefits there. I've also, in my other book, the sexuality book, I talk a lot about chakra activations related to the psychedelic experience, how LSD in particular can be more root chakra, MDMA obviously more heart, throat chakra, a little more crown with DNT obviously. So each of them has their own very unique opportunity to heal different chakras, and each of them, because of their stimulation of BDNF, are going to help with the peripheral nerves as well. Great question. Make sure to write about that in the book too. Yeah, thank you.
Next question.
I've heard it said that when you take artificially some of these drugs and get that release of your own brain chemistry, that you're borrowing from the future and that you risk having a very hard crash in the days following that. Is that true, or do you build up a ability through the use of releasing these brain chemicals to continue to maintain that state without having that crash? Is the crash true?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that if you don't do the right preparation and you don't do the right post-roll protocol or post-journey protocol, you definitely set yourself up for that potentiality. But if you do things like reducing oxidative stress with N-acetylcysteine and CoQ10 and glutathione, if you're rebuilding your serotonin with 5-HTP or SAMe, the risk of that is minimal to none. You also have to pay attention to the frequency of psychedelic use, particularly with MDMA. Best to use it once a month or even less frequent, or if you're doing a low dose, you can have it a little bit more frequent. But so much of it, I think, is how the individual responds. Some people will be like, oh my God, it took me 4 days to reboot after doing MDMA. I'm like, okay, you probably need to wait 3 months before you do that again based upon your slow recovery there. But I think, yeah, we can all rebuild. And I've noticed personally by being more proactive with methylene blue, CoQ10, NAD, very good diet, exercise, etc., I have no problem rebooting at all. And I know many of my psychonaut friends that are much older than me do just as well too, by kind of following the protocols that are out there.
As I move to the rear of the line here, how dangerous is it to do this on your own, or do you feel it's important to have somebody either maintaining space or being a supervisor for somebody that doesn't know really what they're doing?
Yeah, great question. I think when you're starting out, it's always good to have somebody with you for at least the first 3, maybe longer, depending on the stability of the person, how much stuff is coming up. For people that have had a lot of traumas, you may want to have a facilitator there for everyone for a year, and then once they've kind of cleared their stuff, then they're ready to go on their own. So it's definitely more of an individualized basis, but I say people with a fairly normal psychiatric background or history, probably 3 or 4 facilitated sessions, and then as needed beyond that, particularly with the newer psychedelics. So if you go from mushrooms to LSD, you want to go back to facilitation again. Yeah. Appreciate that.
My question is about San Pedro. The cactus is readily available. How do you process it, and what kind of dose, and what kind of an effect, if you could synthesize?
Yeah, I grow San Pedro because it's a beautiful cactus. I've almost got enough to process it and try it out myself. But I'm lucky I have a friend that prepares it for me, and basically he peels it back and he boils it in a pot of water, by selecting, I think, underneath the skin is where he goes with it. I don't know the exact process, but I think that, if you have somebody that can show you that, it's probably even on YouTube, it'd be easy enough to do. You can also buy San Pedro powder from certain shamanic shops. That's been very good. It's just very bitter. And the dose of the San Pedro powder I usually do is about 10 to 12 grams. Then I'll mix it in like orange juice and chug it down.
And the effects of San Pedro versus some of the others?
Ooh, yeah. San Pedro. I write about it in my, which one? My Awakening Gaia book. So it is very nature connecting. You will see auras around plants, around trees. You will have this deep heart opening. It can be great for sacred sexuality in the latter half. It is root chakra activating, and it lasts a long time, like 14 hours or so. And it is very crown chakra opening too, so sometimes you may need some assistance in grounding out, whether it's breath work or sitting and meditating. But it's one of my favorites for sure. It's a daytime one that I typically do. Yeah.
Hi. So you mentioned CoQ10 and
NAD and methylene blue.
I don't know, my camera's taking a picture of me now all of a sudden. So, but I've been using MCT oil. Do you know where that is in that?
Oh yeah. So MCT oil is, oftentimes derived from coconut oil.
Yeah.
Medium chain triglyceride is what it stands for. It's another important thing that I could have had a slide about. It's good in terms of myelination, so it's a good healthy fat that won't muck up your cholesterol, that will help with myelination, which is basically the insulation of the wires in your body. So it's good for the peripheral nerves, we're talking about that. And it's great just to myelinate your brain. Dave Asprey uses it in
that's where it's
bulletproof
from.
coffee.
Right, that's what I do with it.
Yeah, so I think it's great stuff. The only thing I found with MCT oil, if you take too much, it's a good laxative, so be careful.
But you would still do the CoQ10 and the other if you would.
Yeah, so CoQ10 is more on the mitochondrial pathway.
Well, that's what he said, it does work with the mitochondria.
Mitochondria? Maybe
yeah.
a little bit, but it's not a big player. It's probably more like a, lower down the total pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, do you have recommendations? My husband has a lot of memory after chemo. He's in some, what do you call those, when you have a knockout, like on football.
Like a TBI? kind of
Yeah,
thing?
concussion, thank you.
Right,
Where's that
yeah.
C word?
Yeah, yeah.
I apparently have it too. So anyway. But, so I'm wondering about memory or, helping spark besides lion's mane, other things. for
Lion's
brain.
mane is awesome. I forgot to mention lion's mane, I need to add that to my talk. Cheap stuff, you can grow it, you can cook it, it tastes like scallops if you throw it in the pan, it's amazing. Lion's mane is a nootropic which can actually pair very well with microdosing of mushrooms. So I would say microdose him, lion's mane at night, and light his brain up. And what I mean by light his brain up, there's a company called Vielight, V-I-E-L-I-G-H-T, and you put the light on your head and it's like a giant spotlight on your brain. It goes through the skull about 2 centimeters deep. It hits your capillaries and it will improve the mitochondrial function. Hugely helps with traumatic brain injury, post-chemo brain, or people that just want to kind of maintain their edge cognitively can use light therapy. And then if they use the methylene blue, they take it about half an hour ahead of time, then they light their brain up, then you're firing up the mitochondria even more in there. So you can always think about, I'm improving blood flow to my brain and the delivery, I'm gonna load myself up with all these other goodies right before I do it.
What was the name of that again?
Vielight, V-I-E-L-I-G-H-T. And it's not some hokey pokey thing, it's got plenty of scientific studies that have been done, University of Boston's done studies, etc. It's about $1,500, it's not real cheap, but it's like a great home medical device. No prescription needed for that. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Next question.
So I love the having everybody get up and hugging everybody,
Yeah.
because that's a drug in itself, and they're finding out now that the heart actually sends messages to the brain that changes the brain's chemistry. And people didn't know about that before. So I thought that was really great, because I think the sense of community, when you develop that, there's a high there that is just beyond everything else. Okay. And so the other thing I want to mention is that for those of you that stuck around, last year I presented at this same time, right? And I wanted to say that not just this stuff here, but I think it's important to not focus on the negative things that are separating us apart, but to focus on what brings us together. Like, we all want this peace and happiness, a good country, all those kinds of things, and not to focus on the negative, because the negatives are what drives you to needing this stuff even more and more and more.
Exactly, that's a very good tip there.
There was no question there, it's just a speech.
Yeah.
If you'd let me know if you have a speech in advance, that'd be nice.
I have an easy question, but first a short speech. Just a couple of things. Let me just set my books down here. Suzanne mentioned the the founding women's group, and they have a film coming out. It's free. You can find them online. It's called In Our Right Minds, and I just thought it goes so well with this. Not exactly sure what's in there, but we're all talking about moving beyond trauma, like that other film that was out there that said it ends with us, and the thing Joe just said. And along those lines, I also liked the hug that you did. And I have a pet peeve about that game everybody was playing for a few years. It's the Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, yeah.
I'll reach out to you and Maya, because I'm like, this is really for humanity, and there's a lot in there. I have a simple question for you that is, you may have answered already, that is just the red light. Can any red light work, like a red light bulb? Thank you very much.
It needs to be ideally more in the near infrared spectrum, which I think is 780 nanometers to 850 or something. You can have it combined with red and near infrared, but the near infrared is going to give you greater depth of penetration through the skull and into the brain, and also into muscle tissues. So NIR is what you want to look for. And then if you get the higher joules per centimeter type of bulbs, whether you're buying a full panel like a Juke panel or a headset, that's where you're gonna get more bang for your buck, joules per centimeter.
And did you say over 7 nanometers?
780, yeah, I think, yeah. You could Google near-infrared light spectrum, but even on Amazon, it used to be really expensive, like $1,000 to get a really nice near-infrared pad or so, but you can get them for $100 now. I think they're just made in China, but they're still, from what I understand, just as good in terms of the amount of photons coming out of there. But yeah, light therapy is great, and again, combine the light therapy with methylene blue, you get that synergy there.
And Pandora Star.
Oh, Pandora Star. Yeah, I have a Pandora Star. Who all has Pandora Stars in here?
Oh, Dom has one.
So Pandora Star is not near infrared, but it's photic light entrainment. It's a meditative lamp that can put you into various brainwave states. So it will basically hypnotize your brain into gamma brainwave state, or theta, or alpha. And we know that if you go into gamma, it can help reduce amyloid plaque in your brain, which is why there's now some companies that are making a high flicker gamma light. You can't even see a flicker for your desktop that can help with brain health. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think
Pandora Star. There's another one called Lucia Light, but I like the Pandora. It gives you better colors and geometry.
it's a lot less expensive. The
It's a lot
Lucia
less.
is
If you have a
25,000.
question or comment, come up here. Right here.
There's me tough up
I just want to say there's other applications for the methylene blue. I had a rattlesnake bite last year, and they had to cut a gaping hole in my leg for debridement surgery to cut out the necrotic tissue, and I used these methylene blue pads to enclose that wound, and it really helped granulate the wound bed up to the surface, and I've had a miraculous healing on it. So I just want to mention that. I want to know though, I found some drops of methylene blue. It's made by BPH, and it's 1%. Do you have any idea about just buying drops without having a prescription on the methylene blue?
I'll
The
defer to Maya.
only scary part about buying methylene blue non-prescription is that the cross-contamination can be pretty high. So you just want to make sure that whoever's manufacturing it, the only thing in it is methylene blue. And unfortunately, when you're just buying things on Amazon, this goes for all supplements. If it's not a reputable brand, there can be a lot of things in there that aren't the compound that you're buying. So if anything's really inexpensive or readily accessible, I know that there are some brands people use in liquid form, but I wouldn't trust it for me personally, so just something to consider.
It says it's 1%, so you think that would be bad then?
It's not much the concentration as much as when you're manufacturing any kind of a compound, it's not always, unfortunately, just what you think is in there. There can be a lot of cross-contamination that you don't even know about. Compounds that are really toxic, that are in the formula that aren't listed, that just happen as a byproduct because of the manufacturing process. So just getting it from a credible source is important. And also, if methylene blue is something you're interested in, you actually can administer it via IV, and this is something that you can do in our office as well. So.
It was really interesting to hear what you're talking about. I've been doing this work for about 40 years. I'm almost 60 now. But I did it through doing what I call animal alchemy. I do raw meat, organs, glands, raw milk, depleted deuterium water, and all that. And how do you say it, Myas? How do you say
rapamycin?
Yeah. It's very similar to how they discovered ivermectin. These are soil organisms. So I make sure my water is spring water from the mountains up here in Colorado that has all the soil organisms. And what we're finding is we're having these kind of experiences, but healing everything and staying younger. The thing that I'm wondering is how so many people are wanting to use a drug or something outside themselves rather than eating and living well, where it will naturally come out of you yourself. You know, like DMT, you'll produce it, so you don't need to take it. So I'm wondering why so many people take shortcuts rather than going inside and doing the work where you don't need any of it. But I get it's helpful for people who are blocked. It sort of like opens you up. And I used to live in England where they were legal. I moved when I was 18 back in the early 80s. And people would have one or two experiences and never need it for the rest of their lives. They lost all their fear of death. They felt connected to everything. But so often, a lot of the people I meet in like Boulder and the surrounding areas are using it, in my personal opinion, too recreational, and it's causing harm for some of them. I think they do too much without doing their work. You know what I mean? Like escapism. I didn't know what. Well, what I'm trying to say is, have you been working with people where you're doing it more dietarily rather than doing these other things that are drugs or other substances?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I call it dietarily, but I would say in a container of high consciousness with an intent of holding it in a sacred space for awakening and spiritual growth, and using it in a way that it complements a healthy lifestyle, a healthy mindful-based practice, healthy diet, etc. And so my philosophy is, yeah, all that stuff that you're doing, plus a little extra icing on the cake, and then I get the best of the best.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, I recognize you. Okay.
Many in our culture are looking at these drugs as mediums for escape, entertainment, fun, especially the younger generations. You speak about inner awareness and growth. Can you speak to what you do, or how you set intent, or what dosages you use, or whatever you might do to enhance the inner insight part of this experience, rather than just seeing all the geometry and the beautiful colors?
Yeah, oh, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, every journey I go into, I set an intention. Now, I will say that sometimes I set an intention and then the medicine will take me in a completely different direction. And it could be dark, it could be light, it could be blissful love, etc. But a lot of times I really want to go into this intention of trying to open my heart and to send light for healing of the planet, for our world coming together. That's probably my most common intention. Sometimes I go in with the intention of I need enlightenment to figure out where to go in my life. I need creativity to help write a book. I need a download on a relationship that I'm in, things of that sort. So I use it in a very conscious manner to further progress my enlightenment and my healing and my growth. And I think if we do it in that way, and we're not going out there like some of these Elon Musk type people that are just like, how can I make another $1 billion, you know? And how can I take advantage of people and be greedy and gain power? But we do it in the light and the love, then it's a completely different dynamic.
So is there a regimen you use to create a space to allow through what you want to experience, rather than allowing anybody to play around with you, assuming that not every consciousness, non-physical, is of the light?
Yeah.
But maybe, you know, anything. And so what do you do to help attract to you that which you're looking for?
Yeah, so you mean more like a ritual kind of thing, or like rituals, or yeah. I mean, ritually, sometimes, particularly when I'm in a circle, I'll be doing staging, and we're going around and sharing our elements of intention, and helping people if they need it on their intentions. Sometimes I'll write it down, but oftentimes, yeah, it's just my internal processing of where I want to go before I hop in my rocket ship and take off, and then the big process of unpacking everything that came in and the integration is equally as important.
So any like sage or any crystals that you like, or anything else, or is that just all peripheral to your own intention?
Yeah, no, that's a great question too. I'm big into crystals. I wrote a whole book about them. So I do use crystals quite a bit. I put them on my third eye, my heart chakra a lot. That can really help open my heart and my third eye, obviously, quite a bit. I love working with sacred geometry like this unity grid that Greg has so masterfully developed. And I found that oftentimes holding sacred geometry and meditating while I'm dropping into things allows my eyes to entrain, just like we can be politically entrained from a flashing light, we can be entrained by sacred geometry of shapes such as this. Just as a Buddhist monk will be entrained into a mandala, just as we can be entrained chanting Om Mani Padme Om and the chakra activations. These can all be tools for a deeper drop-in and for healing. So yeah, that's all part of the chemistry of my drop-ins, and then there's a collective field of energy that I oftentimes feel when I'm in circle, particularly if I'm in a powerful circle of like-minded people, and there can be like this vortex that occurs that amplifies everything that's happening in the room. Yeah, powerful stuff, yeah.
We have more questions, but I'm supposed to ask if anybody's interested in going to BJ's afterwards. Would you raise your hand so they know how many people may be interested? You kind of see that? Thank you, and here's our next question.
Hi, I have two questions. I'll make them quick. The first one is when you're working with people who are taking psychiatric meds or antidepressants or anti-anxiety that aren't schizophrenic or any of bipolar, do you wean them off? Like, do they have to be weaned off to take this or to engage in it?
Yeah.
All of that.
It depends on the med. So like people that are on Cymbalta or some of the SNRIs, we have to wean them off over a longer period of time. But if they're on, say, Paxil or Zoloft, I can stop them 2 days ahead of time. They can do the journey, then they can go back on it. One of the things I've found that people that are on SSRIs and SNRIs, they have a much reduced responsiveness because they've had a downregulation of the serotonin receptors. So they might require 10 grams of mushrooms instead of 5 grams. So they can be an expensive date when it comes to getting them in. And there's definitely an element of you've got to kind of do a test dose and see what they need, and maybe the first time you strike out and they barely drop in at all. But yeah, that's a great question. And then there's some that you just have to be really careful with. Speaking of methylene blue, it's good to hold methylene blue because it has a little bit of a stimulation of serotonin. You don't want to take it the day of a psychedelic journey. It's okay the day before or the day after. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And for people like myself who have had a near-death experience, that state of expanded awareness and then coming back with activated synesthesia and a lot of activated open senses, do you find, like even in the integration, I know for myself now, it's that integrating and anchoring in and kind of having a knob to turn the synesthesia and the expanded awareness and the seeing sound and the hearing colors, having this knob to turn it up and down. So sometimes I feel like I'm walking around on a psychedelic journey in each moment and really learning how to work with that. Have you worked with people who have experienced, embodied experiences coming back, these connecting in with the non-physical realms through a near-death experience, or
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've had maybe one that I can think of with an NDE. I found that working with Tibetan bowls, at root chakra level can really help to ground them out, and then doing energy work on them can be very powerful. I've found that, and I write a little bit about it in my Psychosexuality, doing like a downward dog with a Tibetan bowl right on your butt, actually, in your root, can be really helpful to help people ground out with their hands down, or just lying completely face down, chiming it or spinning it can be helpful to get them back in their body and more aware. But I think there's also an element for those of you that are energy workers that you can work the chakra levels and kind of get the whole energy body in balance as well. It's a complicated process. Great question, though.
Hi. So I've been working with mostly mushrooms and DMT for the last 5 years, and I was visiting my grandfather in the Philippines when he was about to turn 100, and he sat with me and asked me what I was doing for work, and I was going to just tell him exactly what I was doing for work, and I gifted him for his 100th birthday some psilocybin microcapsules, and he took them right away, and I was with him and my mother for 3 weeks in the Philippines, and literally after the first week, after dinner one night, he got up and started dancing, spontaneously dancing with so much joy and light in his eyes. I was like, Mom, is that normal? It's just happy that I'm home. I'm his eldest grandchild. And so he turns 103 this December, day after Christmas. And so he's my great inspiration because of his results that he showed in front of my mom and all of her siblings. They started microdosing. They were like, what is he taking? And we brought some of that. So they're on it, and then all of my cousins, right? It was a multi-generational effect that started with me, and then my grandfather, and now my daughter is also microdosing. So it's 4 generations in my family. And it's been really a blessing. So my question actually is, are there any scientific studies that show the intergenerational healing effects of consciousness and plant medicine healing? Because I've heard anecdotal evidence that someone down below the family, like I will take psilocybin, and suddenly my mom is healed on a different level, and our relationship has shifted. Like she's different, but I'm the one that took the medicine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's all connected through the family tree somehow. I'm wondering, is there science behind that? Because I see it happening with clients and with my own family, but has anybody studied this?
Not that I'm aware of, but there's studies that are saying that we could have somebody from 3 generations past that we don't even know where their trauma can affect us personally.
Right.
So if they're in this lifetime still alive, I would absolutely think that effect would be even more.
Because I see a lot of ancestral lineage healing that's happening in people when they take medicine, and so it goes up the line, but I'm wondering, how it affects. It goes both ways, yeah.
That would be an amazing study. All right, let's make that happen. Thank you.
So to address her question, in the Bible it says 7 generations in the past and 7 generations in the forefront. And I'm a shaman of 2 lineages, and yes, there's definitely evidence of that in my own family too, for the healing in my own family. And it doesn't matter if the person has died and gone on to the other side, the effects still change because in the matrix it changes. So whatever changes happen, then they come filter down into your current lineage and your children's children's children. So it's all correct.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So the other question about the entities and stuff and people with issues where they've had trauma and PTSD and schizophrenia and stuff, do not let them take these medicines, because as a shaman I have seen and actually pulled entities out of people. A lot of generations have pets that are entities that hang with families. There's someone in the family from many, many generations ahead have made agreements with these beings, and they can jump from a person to a person to a person in the family lineage. So don't do it without supervision, and especially, And the question I had was, I haven't gotten your book, I just bought your book about the grids. What grids are you laying down? Are you doing them for galactic, because that's what I also do, planetary? Or what are you doing with those? Just a good question on that.
Yeah. So the grids that I was called to place are reconnecting the energies of the Inca with the Maya and the Native Americans. So it's a north-south eagle and the condor connection. But then I also work longitudinally east and west, connecting many of the ancient civilizations of Angkor Wat, Easter Island, and beyond. And I feel like there's all this ancient knowledge that through the connecting and activation of these sites that hopefully will resonate and create a vibrational change on planet Earth to make it a better, more beautiful place.
Yeah, because a lot of those were misaligned and taken down by the different forces that have come into the Earth and disrupted our genome as well as our DNA. And it's also affected the places that were naturally there in Gaia that were taken down from sorcery and other things. So I'm glad that we're doing the same work. Thank you.
We need to have coffee later. Thank you.
I think we're at the end of our question and answer. Dr. Grover, thank you so very much.